Woman Who Chat is sponsored by Grow Radio. Grow Radio is an online radio station dedicated to bringing you a different podcast on the hour, every hour. I'm proud that Woman Who Chat is played on Grow Radio every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. and to be a part of their podcasting community. If you want to listen to the station, explore their shows, check out many of the blogs to improve your podcasting skills, or get your podcast onto Grow Radio, head over to growradio.uk today. Welcome to Woman Who Chat, and today I'm chatting with Carolyn Parker. Hello, Carolyn.
Hello, Sandra. Lovely to be here.
I'm really excited about our chat today because I've seen some of your journey, witnessed firsthand at the Solopreneur Awards 2023 and the Solopreneur Awards 2024, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. But I want to find out more about you. So tell us a little bit about what you do now and how you came to arrive there.
Okay, so it's all been quite a surprise over the last few years. If you'd have said to me a few years ago I'd be writing a book, I would be going, no, don't think so. But it all happened through lockdown. If it hadn't have been for the February lockdown when it was cold and it was wet and I didn't have any support clients because sadly my clients had passed away in COVID, I just came across something in my feed that said, would you like to write a chapter in a book? And I thought, well, why not? And that was the start of a much bigger journey, although I didn't realise it at the time.
So obviously you've been doing support, and it must have been a very difficult time knowing that those people passed away and almost been, well, we were all locked up, weren't we? We were all locked up, and it was a thing of sanity, really, to try and find projects to do. Some went to baking, some went to writing, others were homeschooling. I was very fortunate I didn't have that. And you chose writing. So what did you choose to write? You chose that collaborative piece first.
Well, yes, I did a collaborative book, and typical me, I thought, well, what's the hardest thing I can write about? So I actually wrote about my abuse journey and recovery, and partway through I thought, why have I chosen this? But it was a really good thing to start, because if I could write about that, I could write about anything.
Yes, yeah. And I think sometimes when we pick the hardest topics, I mean, I want to talk back to the first time I met you. So you'd entered the Solopreneur Awards. You weren't a finalist, but you decided to come along anyway. And I was sat in the bar the night before, as I often am, with my laptop, just checking everything, going through them with a very large glass of wine. And you came across, and I was just sat there focusing on what I was doing, and you just tentatively approached me and introduced yourself. And I thought that was lovely, the way that you came over to me. So tell me why you decided to stay the night before and why you decided to, well, come over and say hello.
Well, staying the night before was a very practical thing. I have an issue to do with my back, and so first thing in the morning is a difficult time for me. So I thought if I get there the night before, then I'm all set up for the day afterwards. And I saw you sitting in the bar when I came up to order, and I thought, do I go over or don't I? Because she's on a laptop, she's obviously busy, and maybe I shouldn't disturb her. And then I thought, well, it'd be rude not to go and say hello. So we had a lovely chat that night, didn't we? And you were smiling away at me. And then I realized the next day that the reason why you knew my name.
Yes. So basically you decided to come along to the awards anyway, which I encourage people to do because I think it's great to be involved and everything like that. And each year I look for a person that has totally embraced the ethos of Woman Who, the values. And all I saw on the socials leading up to the event was you cheering everybody on. And I'm not a finalist this year, but I'm still coming, and I wish you every success. And everybody that was saying they were looking forward to it, there you were, wishing them all the best. And I thought, this person is just magical. I always give a special award at the end of the Solopreneur Awards, and it's to someone literally. And sometimes I don't decide till the day, but I had already decided on this one, and I knew what I was going to say, and I knew who was going to get it. I'd only decided a couple of days before. And I thought, yes, I know who's going to get that special award. I hope she turns up, because sometimes there's that fear in my mind with the awards. Somebody's booked a ticket and things happen. People have had COVID in the past. They've had illness. They've had cars break down, all sorts of things. And they're not there on the day. And then when you walked up to me, I thought, I've got to keep a straight face here, because I'd just written on my script the wording for you.
Oh, wow.
Like that
I never realized that.
moment. It was just, and in you walked. And
what a moment.
yeah, and I thought, actually, so many people have said to me that, oh, I was going to come and say hello, but I didn't think you'd want to be interrupted, or I
Mm,
didn't bother coming over because I know you're busy. And that's so not me. I love
mm.
people coming over to me. I love people talking to me. I love people approaching me. And somebody said it recently, oh, I didn't have a conversation with you because somebody said, oh, you might not be receptive to that. And I thought, that's so not me at all.
No,
And I immediately said, come and join me, didn't I? And we
you
sat
did,
to
yes.
have a good conversation. You also gifted me a book. Tell us a little about that's your book. Tell us a little bit about that and what that's all about.
Right. So having written that first chapter, I then went on to join a writing group, an online writing group, and I felt encouraged to write a little bit more than a chapter. So I thought I'm just going to make a start at writing about one part of my journey. And I thought for a while now, which bit of the journey am I going to choose? And I decided to do the journey from the end of my school days, leading up to a lot of firsts. So it was the first time that I was away from home. It was the first time that I had a serious relationship. It was the first time I'd gone to college. It was the first time that I'd gone to work, the first baby, the first marriage, the first this, the first that. But within that, I had such a sunny disposition that I thought life was a wonderful thing, which it is. But I didn't realize there were any bad people in the world. And I discovered quite quickly that not when people say things to you, they don't always mean what they say. And sometimes they're out for their own gains or and sadly to hurt you rather than to build you up. And I went through some difficult times, some challenging times, suffered some stigma, and was just a really low time of my life. And but I was determined that if I wrote about it, and having discovered from that first chapter that writing could make such a difference, not only to me, but to other people, I thought, well, this stuff needs to be out there. It needs to be out in the world so that other women that might not have told a soul that they'd gone through some difficulty have thinking, oh, this girl understands. I'm not on my own. I'm heard, I'm seen, I'm validated. And it is possible to move forwards from where I'm at, because I think sometimes we can bury it and try and get on with our lives, but it's always holding us back until we actually face those situations and deal with them, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I think it's the learning as well. It's that learning piece because if we write something or we speak on stage, and we'll come on to that later, but if we say something that has a profound impact on somebody so that they sit there and think, oh wow, that's me, and she has moved forward, she
Hmm.
has overcome that, or she, look at her standing there, and if she's done it, I can. And it's all
Yes.
those sorts of things, and that's why I started Woman Who. It was all about people sharing those stories to inspire others that they weren't the only one on their own, and that they could achieve something, whether that be in life or business. But knowing somebody's trodden that path before and taken
Yes.
those steps and come through it
Yes.
gives people hope and inspiration that they can
Yes. Very
too.
much.
And
Very much so.
it's a woman who is about creating the role models that aren't these super high flying celebrities that use these influencers. It's real people who have had real struggles that have come through them, have learned from them, and are taking that teaching to the world and saying, if I can do it, you can do it too. So you epitomize a woman who role model by that very nature of what you've shared. So how was it cathartic and challenging in equal measure, sharing your own story?
I'm not quite sure whether it was equal measure, but certainly both of those things. I think you have to do a lot of the healing before you start writing, because otherwise it just gets too emotional and
Mm.
you will basically have to stop and then deal with that situation before you carry on. But I've done a lot of healing journey before I started to write. But what I hadn't expected is that as I wrote, and as I then went on later to write about different parts of my journey, everything joined together. I could see why I had been in that situation, or I could see, lots of light bulb moments as I was writing. And my story kind of, whereas before and it felt as it was this little chapter here and that little chapter there, and this happened here and that happened there. And they didn't necessarily seem to be connected, but now it's a much smoother sort of transition from the beginning to where I am. And it
Mm.
made sense of a lot of my life, of why did I make those decisions at that time? Because looking back, it felt, well, that was a very foolish decision to make, but why did I do that? And then I could see the reasons why I did that. And sometimes I was made to feel that I had made a decision, but particularly in that book, From a Place Called Shame, I could see as I was writing it that supposedly this was my decision, but in fact I was influenced by the doctor, I was influenced by my parents, I was influenced by society. I was kind of pushed down a channel to go this way, and I didn't have an awful lot of choice in the matter, which made me feel much better about what happened, because it wasn't all me making that decision.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we are what I call controlled by outside influences. So we have those external influences and the internal ones, which we can do something about. We can work on ourselves. And I
Yes.
suppose it's how we react to those things that happen to us and what we do with that, because everybody has what I call a roller coaster journey. Life isn't all blossom and lemons and pretty music and dancing down the street. It isn't like that. It's real. I was writing a book about living, it was called Living with Mum. And I started writing that at the start of the pandemic, but my mum got ill and it became very challenging becoming a full-time carer, and I could no longer write. I had to put that writing aside for the very reason you said, because I wasn't seeing it from a good place. I was feeling resentful of the situation I was in and I had no control over it. And I had to put that work to one side. I will come back to it one day, but you can't write when you're in the moment. I think it has to be more reflective.
Does, yes.
Yeah. So you recently attended one of my speaker boot camps and you decided to come along and to share a part of your story that you wanted to share on stage. So what made you pick that particular topic that you were going to work on that day in the boot camp?
Oh, that's a difficult question. It was quite a wide topic as well, wasn't it? And I had to do a quick fast forward through the middle. I'm not really sure exactly why, to be quite honest, Sandra. I just wanted to share that of what my beginnings were and how that then affected me, and then how I got out the other end once I discovered that I could change my story. And that was a revelation when I got to 2018, 19, and I realized, oh, hang on a minute, I don't have to stay as I am. I can actually change how I feel, change how I behave, and this will make a difference on my life. And I was just felt well, that to make sense of that part, I needed to start at the beginning. And so that's why we started right at the beginning of the story when I was first adopted.
And so we were obviously during the boot camp, you'd had all the theory, you sat there, you were brainstorming, you were working in twos, you were going off and working in little groups. And then I said, who would now like to take the mic and come and deliver their story? And
Yes,
I can't remember whether you were the first one or the second one. I can't remember.
I was the last one.
Oh, you're the last one, right? Okay. You decided to go out with a bang.
Yeah.
And as you took the mic, and I stood to the side of the room, I wished I'd videoed it, but I don't, because I think that gives you extra pressure. And I just stood against the wall at the side of the room, and you had no notes. You just spoke from the heart, and you delivered probably one of the most powerful presentations I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you. I'm a bit
Well,
gobsmacked at that.
you know, it impressed me because people in the room were instantly supportive of you. And from that, I said, Carolyn, I set you a challenge, didn't I?
You did.
So let's go back to that room. You delivered and the first thing you said to me was when you finished, you said, wow, I don't know where that came from.
I did. I remember saying that, yes.
So you were in the moment. How did that feel once you delivered that?
The strangest thing was, I'm going to step back just one tiny step, because when I did the practice, I wasn't in the room you were in and I couldn't do it. I literally got a minute in and then I said, oh, I've lost my thread. And I just said, well, I'll talk about this and then that. And I was a bit upset that I couldn't actually do it on the practice. But I thought, when you said we've got time for one more before it's time to go home, I thought, I've got to at least stand there and have a go. And I wasn't going to say the whole story. And as soon as I changed. It was like, as you hear your voice through the mic, I stepped into being that speaker mode rather than being there the practice mode, it's like I was two different people, and all the passion just came and it just happened. And the same happened later on when any time where I have stood up and spoken, whether it's my book launch or anything. I can't explain it. I'm just a different person, and I just go into speaker mode, and I love it. I just feel I do with this download, and out it comes.
And so obviously I set you a challenge. I said, I just put it on a Facebook group and I just said, I'd like to invite you to speak on my stage at the Solopreneur Awards this year. And you didn't respond. And that just shows how poor the Facebook algorithms are, because I tagged you in and everything, no response. And I thought, oh, she doesn't want to do it. Okay, right. And it took somebody else to tag you in and say, are you rising to the challenge, Carolyn?
And I said, what challenge?
Yeah. And so you did come along and speak on the day. You weren't the first on the stage either. What's
I
that
was last
like?
again.
What's that like, knowing that you're speaking later on? I remember when I was speaking at an event in the early days, and I couldn't eat my lunch because I thought, well, if I eat my lunch, I might feel full, and then I might need the loo, and then I might not be able to get up and speak.
Yeah.
So how was that wait, seeing the day pan out before you, knowing that you've got to wait till the middle of the afternoon to speak?
Initially, I had some negative thoughts about it. And then I thought, hang on a minute, this is actually working in my favor because of that struggling in the morning. I'd actually had a difficult journey getting there as well. So I was slightly flustered when I first arrived. So I'm pleased I wasn't first on stage. Then I was able to kind of relax having got there and started to enjoy the vibe of being there. And you wouldn't have seen it, but I was doing this. I was doing my tapping
Oh, right. Okay.
underneath the table. I deeply, oh, I can't even remember what I said now, but deeply loving and appreciating myself. I can do this thing. Everything's fine. I was just going along doing this tapping as I was listening to the second speaker. I was able to really enjoy the day. So that was great. I have thought I might have just been very anxious all the way through, but it shows how much I've grown that I was able to do that.
That's really good to hear. And obviously, so I introduced you to stage, you delivered an amazing keynote and got a standing ovation.
That was
How did
amazing.
that feel?
Well, just overwhelming, warmed my heart, really. I think is the best way of saying it. And I just felt really pleased that it had gone well and that people had responded and that I've been able to connect with people, because that what the ovation meant to me is that what I'd said had connected with them. And that was the whole purpose of me speaking in my mind, is that what I said would connect with them in whatever way they needed.
And then when I deliver the boot camps, what I say is you don't want to be going out looking for people. You want people to gravitate towards you. And speaking on a
Yes.
stage, I've never seen, well, all my speakers, people just gravitated towards them. We had that comfort break and suddenly everyone was descending on the speakers. And again, at the end of the afternoon, which was lovely to see.
Mm.
So obviously you've dipped your toe now into speaking in different scenarios through your book launch, speaking on stage. Is this something you want to expand on and do more of in the future?
Yes, she says with a qualified voice. Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And it's just jumping out of that comfort zone. And I set an intention earlier this year because I was 65 earlier this year. And I was so, right, we're going to jump out of the comfort zone at least 65 times. And then I realized just how many times that was in a year. And I think that was the biggest jump out of the comfort zone. But each time you do, you don't grow in confidence until you do that.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm open to looking at other opportunities and learning to speak in different ways, whether it's speaking maybe online, continuing to do podcasts, and just taking the little opportunities that come along to stand up and speak when I'm able to, and just grow that confidence.
And are there any plans in the pipeline to write another book, just yourself, and not a collaboration?
Yes, I'm thoroughly enjoying myself at the moment, because instead of writing about difficult times, I wanted to find a way of passing on all those lovely little stories that happen in childhood and as you walk working through life, just little incidental moments that you would love to pass on. And sadly, I don't have a family situation where I'm able to pass those on. So I thought, well, how can I pass them on in a written form? And I came up with the idea of writing a series of letters from a mother to, well, I'm calling it like a long lost daughter. It's loosely based on my youngest child, but very loosely. And for writing, just I needed a name, so I came up with Dear Emily. So it's called Dear Emily, and it's based in 2019, 2020. And I'm just asking her initially, is it okay if I tell you all these beautiful stories, because I would like to pass them down to the grandchildren? And then it's letters from me to her throughout that time, but then referring to what she's doing in the meantime. So I'm really enjoying doing that, because I've never done anything that's had an element of fiction in it. So that's the challenge for this one.
Yeah, fantastic. And I've read your blogs and things that you've written. You're a very powerful writer and very descriptive, and it's lovely. It's a pleasure to read. So keep on going with that writing. Sadly, Carolyn, we've run out of time, and I always ask my guests to leave us with a piece of learning, a piece of advice, a top tip, what I call your mic drop moment. What would you like to share?
Very simple. You're never too old and it's never too late. I mean, that's my mantra now. When you're going, no, I can't do that, I can't do that. That's it. You're not never too old and it's never too late. Just give it a go. Just give it a try, and you may be surprised.
Fantastic. That's a lovely ending to this podcast. I've loved chatting to you, Carolyn. We will have you back again when you're further along your writing journey and you've published that book. In the meantime, I've been chatting to Carolyn Parker.
Thank you, Sandra.